thank you for coming to AnimalCon 2022. Yeah. Could you introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Jeremy Turgeon. I operate Brassman Reptiles out of North Carolina, and I'm also a co-host for the Reptile Talk podcast with my good friend Rob Christian, who's not here, but but I'm here to rep. So,
what kind of things do you talk about on your podcast and on your channel?
Yeah, so basically the whole thought process. So I started the Reptile podcast almost 10 years ago, and back then we were just interviewing breeders, talking about, hey, what do you breed? How do you breed them? All that stuff. When I decided to revive the podcast after I started working at Nerd, I was like, man, there's so many other podcasts that do the same thing. I don't necessarily want to do that again. But what I do want to talk to are the people that have stories. I want to know some more of the history of the reptile industry. That got us, both of us, really excited. So that's basically what our podcast is now. We talk with keepers, young and old, from all over the world, and we just talk about their experiences with reptiles, some of the funny stories that have happened over the years at Daytona shows and Tinley shows and all that stuff, and give people a little bit more of the personality aspect of the industry instead of just he keeps a cool snake. We all think our animals are cool, but I want to know more about the people.
Yeah, something where not everybody's able to go to every show and you're able to fill in the puzzle pieces, kind of.
Exactly, yeah, for sure.
What got it all started? Were you passionate about animals as a kid, too?
Absolutely. I was the traditional story. I really like dinosaurs and all that stuff, and I kept frogs and like little lizards like anoles and stuff like that. And then finally, after many years of begging my parents, I was allowed to bring snakes in the house, and then my mom quickly regretted that because I filled up a whole room. I started my first business breeding reptiles when I was a freshman in high school. And then my mom really knew she got into trouble.
Yeah.
But yeah, as a kid, I was always just fascinated by them, something prehistoric, back to the dinosaur thing. I think it's that primal instinct of like, oh my God, that's so cool. And it's like, they exist. They still exist,
So what evolved it from keeping and breeding snakes to starting a podcast?
One of the things that really intrigued me, I got really lucky. So I grew up in Massachusetts. I grew up 2 hours away from New England reptile distributors. And Kevin quickly became one of my mentors growing up. And when I connected with Steve Tillis down here in Florida via YouTube, he was getting ready to start working with Eugene Bissett, and he knew a bunch of the bigger name guys down in the Southeast. So I was like, man, it's really cool that we know some of these higher profile names. Most people don't know them. They don't know who they are. They're pretty secretive people. It would be cool to give people an opportunity to hear from them. That was the whole premise of it. I was like, we've been really lucky, to be able to have access to these people every day. We should, kind of spread the wealth a little bit and at least give them an extra voice outside of, what they might get if somebody picks up the phone and calls. I think you talk to any of these guys, these older guys, like, they've forgotten more than most of us younger guys will ever know. You know what I mean? Especially on some of these rarer species or harder to work with species. So it's like, man, they're here with us now. We got to learn as much as we possibly can, before we don't have access to them anymore. So that was the whole premise for it all. It was just like, we've been really lucky. Let's bring that to the people.
In closing, do you have any thoughts or things that you would like to share?
If you're not at AnimalCon this year, you need to be at AnimalCon next year. Support all these amazing content creators. Support amazing companies like Zoo Med. Obviously, support USARK if you don't already. But this really is just a massive sense of community. Today we've got all the fans and supporters that are flooding in, and it's amazing to see all these people just coming to hang out and be around people that they look up to, get to learn from. This is an amazing opportunity. So if you're around in the future, come on out.
Well, thank you so much.
Absolutely. My pleasure.